So that's the problem we're trying to solve today. And many of you commented and said it might be sealant, it might be the valve, it might be a few things. But today we're going to try to replace the sealant and see if it makes any difference. Alright, ladies, gents, before we dive into this video, there's a few things I do want to say because I can already see the comment section going crazy. The tips I'm giving in this video is when you only replace your sealant or fill up your sealant. If you don't want to do it through the valve, you need to take off the tire because there might be some dry sealant in there. The tips for that is on the video for today. Usually when putting on new tape or a new tire, before adding the sealant, you need to set your tire, because believe me, it happens more than you think that the tire comes off the bead before setting it and then there's sealant everywhere. So the tips for today is for a tire being taken off on the one side. So we de-clinch it, or take it off the bead on the one side, we clean the tire and we put in new sealant and then we just put it back onto the bead. Enjoy. Now during the change of the sealant, I'm going to share with you a few tips that I found work extremely well. Now, the one thing that you're going to need to do is get yourself one of these little caps here, either from your Mr. Min or anything that you clean your car with, or anything that's got a cap like this, and hold on to this because this will change your life. And then the second tip I'm going to give you starts with the following. Alright, so of course we need to let out the air from our wheels. So we're going to start with that. Get yourself a little bit of a rag or something that can get dirty. I'm just going to let out the air real quick. Some people take out the valve core and let out all the air immediately. I don't do that, and I don't do that for a reason, especially when I want to change my sealant. So now that we've let out the air, give your tire a bit of a squeeze to ensure all the air is out. Okay, now for the following part is very important. Especially if you just want to change sealant and you don't want to change your tubeless rim tape. You need to push the tire away from the side of the rim very slowly to ensure that you don't pull the tubeless tape with. And then we're going to do it like this. While pushing, push down on the tire so it goes into the rim and don't pull up. And then it will release from the seal that you've got there all the way around. And this is where you must take your time, because once again, we do not want to replace the rim tape on this one. We just want to ensure that we remove the old sealant. Alright, so as you can see, the tire has been pulled away from the rim. The rim tape is still perfectly fine. I won't say it's the best of rim tape, but it's perfectly fine still. And now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our tire lever. Any tire lever will do. If you've got carbon rims, make sure you've got something that will protect those when you take the tire off. Now the reason I'm leaving my wheel on the bike is that I've got this. I've got movability of the wheel. I don't have to work on the ground. If you've got a low bike stand, you can use that as well. As long as your wheel can spin, it's on the bike, because the next step will be crucial. We're going to start taking off our tire. Put in your tire lever and pull the tire over. Now this tire is quite old, so I can just start pushing it off the rim. And because there's some sealant, it will glide off easy as well. We're going to go through all the way around, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Now the reason I think it's also a bit of sealant that's dried up or made a small little ball, you'll see it makes a small little ball inside, a rubber ball. Now the reason I think it's that these brakes are touching on the brake pads, and look at this. If I turn the wheel a bit, and I leave it, it starts turning by its own. And it doesn't go all the way down to the valve, it just stops at one point. So I do think it's a bit of sealant. Alright, now for the next step. And this is one of the tips that I've learned from a friend of mine way back when I also started working on bikes. If you've got this little cap of a Mr. Min or anything, you can use this to scoop out the sealant from the inside of the tire. It works perfectly because as the tire is lying like that, your cap slides all around, getting all the sealant on the sides and on the bottom of this tire. Let me show you. So we're going to take our cap, put it into the wheel, and you can just start scooping out all the sealant on the inside of the wheel. And that's the reason I left it on the bike, because it's so easy. I can have the wheel running all the way around, scooping the sealant. And the more you go, the more you'll scrape off. There's a nice little bulge there. Grabbing that, you can almost hear it coming off as well. Nice big scoops. Take it out. Oopsie. And there you can see it takes out all the sealant. Alright, so we're going to grab a rag, old rag, and don't use a new one or a fancy one because you will never use it again. Just to make sure we wipe out all the other sealant that's left. Make sure you wipe the rim as well, because on the rim there's usually a lot of sealant that stays there, especially when it's not the best sealant or it's not the right sealant in this case. So yes, you do get specific sealants for specific wheels. So for example, if you've got a tubeless setup, there's specific tubeless sealant that you must use. And if you've got a tube, then there's a specific sealant you use for tubes. Now what I've seen, and maybe you guys can let me know in the comments down below, the sealant that you put into your tubes is usually a lot thicker. And it doesn't last as long as tubeless sealant, where tubeless sealant is a lot thinner, runs a lot easier. Things like your stands sealant. In this case I'm using fugate sealant, so this is a very good all-rounder sealant. Lasts quite long, and I've seen it seal very thick holes. And let me just show you how it looks now. So just on the inside of the tire, it's nice and clean. I'm not going to scrape out every little bit of sealant, but just make sure, for example like this here, if there's a few, what are you going to call that, nuggets, just make sure you've got those out so the new sealant doesn't stick to that immediately. So that's basically how it looks currently. Now we're going to add the new sealant. Alright, so I've got my hands all cleaned up. So this little cup that we used to take out the sealant, if you don't have something else that's got specific measurements, for example a small little bowl that gives you 100 mils or a 50 mil or 80 mil or 90 mil, I've made videos on specific amounts that you need to put in. But in this case, and it's worked perfectly, I'm going to put in 2.5 cups to 3 cups. If it's a new wheel, 3 cups. In this case, 2 cups of my sealant. I'm using fugate sealant, the tubeless sealant. So it says give it a nice shake, and then I'll show you guys how we put in the sealant and then inflate the wheel from there, because that's the most important part as well. Alright, so we've got our sealant poured into this cup. I'm going to put in 1. Next one, so that's 2 cups of sealant, and then just another half one, just for that little bit extra. Ensure we've got this old tire nice and sealed. Now we're going to put back the tire, and this is another important step. Alright, so now that we've added our sealant, we need to put the tire back in. And what I usually say is start at the top. We're going to start putting in the tire. Make sure you just push it in all the way around, so that when you start turning the wheel, the sealant has a place to go and doesn't fall out of your wheel. Okay, now we get to this point here. Now in this case, the tire is quite old, so it should go over quite easily. But if not, this is one of the best tips I can give you. Make sure you push your tire off the side of the rim, all the way around. So in the inside of your rim, there's a little, let's call it a hollow part. Then the tire goes and lies in that part, giving you a bit more tire to work with. Now let's see if it works. So I've pushed my tire all the way around in, and there it goes over. Now the next part for inflating is also important. You don't need a lot of air, and I've said this many times, but you do need a constant flow of air. Now what we usually do is we take out the valve core. It makes it a little bit easier for air to flow through the valve into the wheel, but in this case I'm going to try to do it with my little adapter here, so that you guys at home can do it as well. Alright, so the reason I'm saying I'm going to use the adapter to inflate the wheel is because not a lot of people got a compressor at home. So you can use this little adapter, go to the fueling station and use the air there. And once again, you don't need a lot of air, but you do need a constant flow of air. Let's see if this works. And one tip, go little by little. Those sounds are the tire seating. And once you get to a point where you hear the tire's not deflating anymore, then you must really go slow because the tire bead needs to seat, and I'll show you guys what that means just now. Right, so what we say when we mean the tire should seat or could come off the bead. If we look here, you'll see there's a small little line running there, all the way around the tire. And then at a few points you'll see it's still inside the rim, and then it comes out. And you can see it continues all the way around the wheel, and then it dives into the wheel again. Now, if you're going to give this tire too much air, there is a possibility that it can come off the bead, so it goes over the rim without seating. So now we're just going to go slowly and have the tire seat on its last part. Let's see if I can catch that on camera for you. And there it goes, a little bit. And there we go. We took the tire off the rim, I showed you guys that. We cleaned the tire, we put in a new sealant, we had the tire set to the bead or onto the rim. So what that basically means is you've got hookless rims. Some of them sits like this, so the tire needs to seat. So we've inflated the tire, I've showed you guys how to do that very slowly. So what you can do now, you can take your normal floor pump, make sure you inflate the tire to your required PSI. You can put back our valve, turn the tire a bit to ensure the sealant is everywhere. And now the big question is, and I really hope it makes a difference, is will it take out that massive hop or imbalance we had on the wheel? Let's check. Certainly still there a bit, that might be the valve, but I'm 100% happy with that compared to how it was.